Google makes more money from search than any company in history has ever made from a single product. In 2025, that one product generated over $175 billion in revenue. And right now, the thing most likely to destroy it is not OpenAI, not Microsoft, and not any chatbot you have heard of. It is a quiet shift in how people find information at all, a shift being driven by a technology that Google itself invented, handed to the world, and is now watching be used against it. The irony is almost too clean to be real. Here is why that matters beyond a corporate rivalry. Search advertising is not just Google's business. It is the financial backbone of the entire modern internet. Every time you click a Google result, a tiny payment flows through a system that funds journalism, funds apps, funds the free tools you use every day. If that revenue model collapses, and current trajectories suggest it could collapse faster than anyone is ready for, the ripple effects hit your news, your software, your online experience in ways that go far beyond which AI assistant you prefer. Analysts at Morgan Stanley estimated in early 2026 that AI-native search alternatives could divert up to $40 billion away from Google's ad revenue by 2028. That is not a small disruption. That is a category extinction event. 2 years away, possibly less. To understand what is actually threatening Google, you need to understand what Google is. Not what people think it is. Google is not a search engine. Google is an attention broker. It finds information, yes, but the business model depends entirely on one thing: making sure you pass through a page of results, see advertisements, and click. The 10 blue links format was never about elegance. It was engineered to create friction, just enough friction to generate ad impressions. For 25 years, this worked perfectly because there was no alternative way to navigate the internet. Then in 2017, a team of Google researchers published a paper called Attention is All You Need. It introduced a new architecture called the transformer. That paper is now the most influential document in the history of artificial intelligence. Every major language model, GPT-4, Claude, Gemini, runs on it. Google gave the world the transformer, and the world used it to build the thing that is now dismantling Google's core business. The threat that Google's own internal research teams are most alarmed by is not a chatbot. It is what researchers are calling Agentic AI. An AI agent does not just answer a question. It performs a task end-to-end, autonomously, without you ever opening a browser. In early 2026, OpenAI's operator and Anthropic's Claude with computer use both demonstrated the ability to browse the web, compare prices, fill out forms, book appointments, and complete research tasks while you do something else entirely. Google commissioned an internal study, portions of which leaked to Bloomberg in March 2026, showing that among users aged 18 to 34, browser-based search sessions dropped 23% year-over-year in markets where AI assistants were widely adopted. 23% in 1 year. To put that in scale, Google losing 23% of search volume is like the entire population of Germany simply stopping their internet searches. The advertising impressions attached to those sessions vanish with them. Here is the part that genuinely reframes the picture. Google is not losing to a better search engine. It is losing to something that makes search itself unnecessary. But the deeper revelation, the one that explains why Google executives are not sleeping well, is that the companies building these agents are training them specifically on the open web, the same web that Google's search index was built to map. Every web page Google has ever crawled and ranked is now training data for AI systems that bypass Google entirely. And the companies doing this most aggressively are not the ones you expect. Perplexity AI, valued at $9 billion as of early 2026, now processes over 100 million queries per month. It does not show ads. It synthesizes answers directly. Its growth rate in the 18 months leading to mid-2026 was faster than Google's own growth rate in its first 2 years. More quietly, Apple is building AI-native search features directly into Safari and Siri that would route queries away from Google by default, which would be catastrophic, because Apple currently pays Google roughly $20 billion per year to be the default search engine on iOS. If Apple builds a compelling enough alternative in-house, they keep that $20 billion and Google loses both the payment and the traffic simultaneously. The mechanism that makes agentic AI so structurally different from search is worth understanding precisely, because it explains why Google cannot simply add AI features and call it solved. A traditional search engine does one thing. It retrieves ranked pages based on keyword relevance and authority signals. You supply the judgment. You click, read, synthesize, compare, and decide. An AI agent operates on a completely different loop. It takes a goal, not a query. It breaks that goal into subtasks. It executes each subtask using tools, web browsers, APIs, calendars, email, and then synthesizes the results into a completed action. Think of the difference like this. Google is a library that tells you which shelf your book is on. An agentic AI is an assistant who reads the book, summarizes what you need, orders the relevant product, and puts the receipt in your inbox. The counterintuitive part is that this assistant still uses the library. It just removes you from ever having to walk through the doors, which is exactly the part where Google's advertisements live. The complications here are real and worth naming directly. First, agentic AI systems make mistakes that search engines cannot make. A search result pointing you to the wrong page is annoying. An AI agent that books the wrong flight, submits a form with incorrect information, or autonomously purchases something you did not intend to buy is a legal and financial liability of a completely different magnitude. Anthropic's own responsible scaling policy acknowledges that autonomous agents operating in the real world create harm vectors that do not yet have regulatory frameworks. Second, the concentration of power is alarming. If a handful of AI companies replace Google as the default interface to the internet, they become gatekeepers with even less transparency than Google. At least you can see a Google result and trace its source. When an AI agent synthesizes an answer, the sourcing is often invisible, which creates real problems for misinformation, for journalism, and for the health of the information ecosystem that the open web depends on. If you work in digital marketing, content creation, SEO, journalism, or any field that has been built on the assumption that people will continue to search and click, you are looking at a structural shift that is happening now, not in a decade. The SEO industry alone is worth over $80 billion globally and is premised on the 10 blue links model surviving. It will not survive in its current form. More personally, if you use Google to research purchases, compare services, or navigate decisions, you are already living through the transition. Perplexity, Claude, and ChatGPT are already good enough for a growing range of those tasks. Watch what Apple announces for its on-device AI in late 2026, specifically whether Safari routes general queries through an Apple model instead of Google. That announcement, if it comes, will be the clearest single signal that the shift has crossed a point of no return. Google is not going bankrupt. It has $110 billion in cash reserves, a world-class research division, and Gemini, which is genuinely competitive. But competitive is different from dominant. And dominant is what Google has always been. The Transformer paper that Google published in 2017 was not a mistake. It was genuine scientific generosity. What nobody modeled was the speed at which it would enable competitors to do in 5 years what took Google 15. In the next decade, the question is not whether AI replaces search. It is whether the company that invented